It can be fun, but you could it up for everybody, so you gotta know. Threesomes, foursomes, moresomes, orgies, swinging, wife swapping. What do these things all have in common? They're all group sex. And group sex requires a different way of being and acting than sex of the one-on-one variety. In fact, it requires a whole different type of etiquette. Just like the difference between eating carry-out alone in your car and eating with your in-laws at a fine steak restaurant, the rules of etiquette change according to the situation. And your ability to adhere to those rules is what's going to determine if you ever get invited back. So listen up. All right, why are we talking about this? Well, group sex actually is pretty common. Like, it actually happens a lot. A lot of people request and desire and set up threesomes and foursomes and swinging and et cetera, et cetera. Also, it's a very common fantasy, and I want you to be ready if it ever becomes a reality for you. So you're hanging out with your girl at the bar, all of a sudden there's this girl flirting with you both, they're into each other, you gotta go home with them. Like, I want you to feel like you know how to swing, pun fully intended. It's also true that many men hold themselves back because they're afraid of screwing it up, because they're afraid that they're not going to do it right. And so I want to give you the primer that you need so that you can feel confident, but without feeling arrogant about what you're doing. All right, let's get clarity on what we are talking about. Group sex, sex with 3 or more folks. Now, this doesn't even necessarily have to include intercourse. This could be a erotic, intimate experience with 3 or more people. Although most of the time we do think about it as intercourse. This may be a threesome where you and a partner invite someone else, or you get invited into a partnership, or 3 people just meet randomly. It could be swinging or swapping, which is a different form of group sex. Swinging is typically 2 couples getting together and they may have sex, all 4 of them, or they may just swap. So it's usually heterosexual. One man goes with the other woman, opposite. They may come back together at the end. Often inside of those environments, both women play together, but both men don't. You can set it up however you want. This also includes going to a sex club. It might surprise you to know that almost all parts of the world, especially inside of the United States, have sex clubs. But it's actually even more true all over the rest of the world, especially in places like Europe, where there are really awesome sex clubs that are apparently really, really nice. This also could include a straight up orgy. Orgy typically includes a whole bunch of folks who are having sex and doing sexual stuff inside of a room together. Honestly, it could include any and all of the above, but what we're really talking about here is sex that includes 3 or more people. All right, so let's get into Caitlin V's step-by-step guide for group sex etiquette. Rule number 1 is follow the BID. And no, that does not stand for big Italian dick. That stands for boundaries, intentions, and desires. B stands for boundaries, which is what you are good with happening and what you are not good with happening for all of the people involved. So first of all, verbal consent is mandatory. Do not act on anything without a affirmative, enthusiastic yes. Could be making out with somebody, could be having sex with your partner in the kitchen. Ask the person who's going to be involved or whose experience is going to be affected if you don't ask. Importantly, talk with your partner. If you're going into the situation with a partner, it's true for men and women, talk with your partner beforehand about your boundaries and your safer sex practices. Nothing is worse than when you get into the group sex encounter and you realize that the 2 of you had an opportunity to talk about what it was going to be, and now that opportunity has passed and it's like happening in real time, and you don't have the safety of knowing what your boundaries are, so you have to play it super duper safe, or you risk overstepping your partner's boundaries accidentally. It sucks. Talk with your partner beforehand, set the boundaries, what's good with you, what's not, when it comes to the party, when it comes to the specific people that are at the party, when it comes to men, women, whatever, discuss it before you get there. Also, when you have that conversation, talk about safer sex practices. Are you good with using barriers for oral sex? What about for vaginal sex? What about what you're gonna do with ejaculate? Like, what's okay with both of you? Get clear on that before you enter. And then once you get there, talk with all of the other people present about your individual and your partner boundaries. Share those with other people so that they know not to overstep them. Ask questions when you hear about other people's boundaries. If someone says that they're not good with something, but you don't really understand what it is that they said, ask. make sure to just ask. You actually will not look foolish. You will only look like you care very deeply about getting it right, and that's hot. And then finally, refuse to play with anyone who doesn't share their boundaries or doesn't want to hear yours. It drives me absolutely nuts when someone is like, I don't have any boundaries at all. No, it's not that you don't have boundaries, it's that you're lazy about thinking about what they are. I guarantee if I go up to you at the orgy and I poke you in the eye and you get upset, rightfully so, and then I say, well, you said you didn't have any boundaries. You didn't say anything about your eyes. I figured eye play was good. Set boundaries. Ask everybody else what their boundaries are. Ask a lot of questions. All right, second in BID is intentions. What are your intentions going in? Do you want to play? Do you want to be curious? Do you want to explore new things? Do you want to be pushed right up to your physical limitations? Do you just want to have a pretty chill night with a lot of watching other people and not so much action for yourself? Also, what is your intention for playing with this person? Do you want a romantic relationship? Are you hoping that by having sex with them, you are going to closen your connection and maybe create a romantic partnership? Or on the other hand, is your intention just a one-time thing? I want to have a great night with you and then we'll probably never speak again. Make sure to be upfront about your intentions as you go into the event. And then D stands for desires. And don't forget, desire is the purpose, pleasure is the goal. So what are your desires? Lay them out specifically and plainly, even if you're afraid that they won't get met, because if you don't say them, it's pretty much guaranteed that they won't get met. At least by speaking them out loud, you will increase the likelihood of someone wanting to meet them. This is so often the case inside of group sex encounters. Like, I can't even tell you how much people get excited when you have a desire to make your desire come true. Vitally, bring and use protection. With more people comes more variables for transmitting sexually transmitted infections and diseases. So it is a really good idea to use barriers even for oral sex. Have really clear communication with everyone about what their specific needs, wants, and preferences are, and change barriers often. It often happens that someone will be fingering one woman and then will turn to start fingering another woman. But what you don't realize is that those two women are now sharing fluid. They're now sharing bacteria. They're now sharing viruses. So make sure that you're washing your hands often. A common practice that I've seen is having mouthwash with alcohol in it to kill bacteria and viruses in the mouth. I actually don't have any evidence on how good of a job that does at preventing STI transmission, but it seems at a minimum like it probably does more than nothing. So consider as you're making out with people, as you're going down on someone, that you're washing your hands and you are potentially using a mouthwash with alcohol in it in order to sanitize and prevent transmission. And then when it comes to barriers, don't show up empty-handed. It's polite to bring your own condoms, especially if you're on the larger or the smaller side and you need specialty condoms to fit you. And bring lube. I think that lube is often the #1 most needed and forgotten accessory, so bring plenty extra to share. And if you plan on using toys, make sure that they're clean and sanitized before you get there, and cover them with condoms anyway to prevent fluid exchange between partners. Also, if you or your partner is a squirter, which if she's not yet, watch my videos, bring a waterproof throw. The company Liberator makes a great one. I have an affiliate link for them. Any other waterproof blanket is going to show respect for their furniture. It sucks when someone ruins a couch because they got caught up in the spirit of the moment and ended up squirting everywhere and had to explain that the next day. Finally, bring your A game. Stay conscious, keyword here, conscious, of other people and what's going on. Men, I'm speaking especially to you. It can be really easy to get caught up in your own desires, so stay aware of everyone else. Read the entire room. Read their verbal and nonverbal cues, including body language. Look for people saying no. Listen for their no as much as their yes. If someone seems like they're not an enthusiastic yes, it's a no. Trust me, this sounds easy enough until you're in the throes of passion and every cell in your body is telling you, forget them, just keep going. That's a good way not to get invited back. And if you're at an orgy, do not just jump into someone's group unless you are invited. It is not a free-for-all. You see a couple hotties making out and you want in on that action, don't just go up and bust in. In fact, you need to check. In fact, depending on the rules of that group or that orgy or that play party space or that sex club, you actually may not be allowed to interrupt them at all. So check in with what the expectations are of the space that you're in, and do not invite yourself where you haven't been invited. So it's also true that exhibitionists love voyeurs. People who love to be watched need someone to watch them. So don't be afraid to watch, but note that it is important for you to get consent from the people that you are watching. Also, you do not have to perform at your peak. A lot of guys think that they have got to be stellar in bed before they would ever let themselves consider a group sex encounter. Or if they can't get an erection, then that would be the absolute end of the world. It is not true. Trust me, dudes, it is not all about you. You can be an amazing support to maybe women having a girl-on-girl experience for their first time. Or you can use your hands, your mouth, and your toys. No one is expecting you to be able to perform 100%, especially if this is your first time in a play space or at an orgy. Mind your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. Sex is intense. With more people, makes it more intense. So make sure that you are resting. Make sure that you've eaten. Make sure that you're hydrated. Stay sober, at least to start. Some groups, play spaces, and sex clubs require total sobriety. Some are okay with wine or beer. Some play with more. But no matter what, always keep your wits about you and never overindulge. And it may be a really good idea for you to play on the conservative side when it comes to your substances, especially while you're getting the hang of things. It's also best for you to plan for things to be a little bit triggering. In your fantasy, it sounds hot to watch your girlfriend being railed by some stud, but once it's happening, 5 feet away from your eyes, you may end up finding yourself having an adverse emotional reaction. So do what you need to do for self-care and try not to interrupt the experience for other people, even if you are struggling internally. Now, I'm not saying just to suppress what you're going through, but take yourself out of the space. Try breathing, grounding, ask for support or assistance. You may need to step away to process, and that's okay. Make sure that you know how to take care of yourself so that you don't end up crashing the party for other people, causing a disruption, or making people feel shame or discomforted in your space. That is how you guarantee that you get to come back. Because I guarantee that discomfort is temporary, can be worked through. Triggers should be welcome as an opportunity for us to grow, not avoided because we can't deal with pain. This is the nature of being an adult. And if you want to engage in threesomes and foursomes and orgies and play parties, then you're gonna get triggered. So come up with a way of supporting yourself so that that doesn't have to be the end of all of the fun. So in conclusion, talk to your partner beforehand, know your BIDs, use protection and bring extra to share. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself and take care of and pay close attention to everyone else at the party with you. And don't be too hard on yourself in terms of performance. No one is expecting an A++++ stellar performance, least of all on your first group sex encounter. I'm Caitlin B, sex and relationship coach. I hope you have the bombest group sex you can imagine and that you use this guide to help you. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel, and I'll see you here next week. Bye-bye.